The Galactic Unity Academy floated in the darkness of space, like a giant silver flower with petals made of glass and metal. It orbited a world that belonged to no one and everyone at the same time. The children who studied there came from 100 different planets. Their parents were ambassadors and merchants and nobles and scientists. They sent their children to learn together so that one day the galaxy might know. Peace Ambassador David Park had made a choice 3 months ago that still caused whispers in the halls. He had enrolled his daughter at the academy. She was human, and humans were new to the galaxy. Hannah Park was 17 years old. She had dark hair that she kept tied back in a simple knot. She wore the gray uniform that all students wore, and she rarely spoke unless someone spoke to her first. She was not tall, and she was not short. She was not loud, and she was not completely silent. She was simply there like a shadow that moved through the halls without making a sound. Her classmates came in shapes that would have seemed like dreams or nightmares to humans from earlier times. The Valari were tall and thin with wings like dragonflies that caught the light and turned it into rainbows. The Morthic were like walking mountains covered in plates of natural armor that clicked when they moved. The Tizani had 4 arms and eyes that could see in directions humans could not imagine. All of them looked at Hannah with something between curiosity and fear. Humans came from Earth. Earth was what the galaxy called a Class 7 death world. This meant that everything about it was designed to kill. The gravity was heavy enough to crush the bones of most species. The atmosphere was a mix of gases that would burn the lungs of others. The water was filled with salt and parasites. The land was covered with predators, and the predators were covered with smaller predators. Every single thing on Earth had evolved for millions of years with one purpose: to survive by any means necessary, and humans had won that war. They had beaten everything else on their planet, and now they were reaching for the stars. The galaxy had a word for creatures from worlds like Earth. They called them Deathworlders. Did not feel like a Deathworlder. She felt like a girl who missed her mother's cooking and her old bedroom and the sound of rain on the roof. But she knew that when the other students looked at her, they did not see a girl. They saw a creature from a world of nightmares. Her only friend was a boy named Kevin Cho. He was 15, and his father worked for a human trading company. Kevin was everything Hannah was not. He talked constantly about everything and nothing. He laughed easily and made friends with species that Hannah could not even name. He had attached himself to her in the first week and refused to leave. "Why do you follow me around?" Hannah had asked him once. "Because you look lonely," he had said. And lonely people need friends more than anyone. She had not known what to say to that. So she said nothing, and Kevin kept following her and talking to her. And somehow that was okay. Today, they sat together in advanced xenobiology class. The teacher was a Tizani with gray skin and kind eyes. She had given them a holographic dissection to complete. The students had to use light tools to take apart a projection of an alien creature and identify all its parts. Kevin struggled with the interface. His hands kept passing through the wrong layers, and the hologram kept resetting. Hannah finished hers in 4 minutes. She had identified every organ and system and weakness without even thinking about it. "How do you do that so fast?" Kevin whispered. Hannah looked at her completed work. She thought about the answer. The true answer was that her mother had taught her. Her mother had been in the military before she married Hannah's father. She had been something called Special Forces, which meant she was trained to fight and kill and survive in places where survival should have been impossible. When Hannah was young, her mother had taught her things. Other children learned to ride bicycles. Hannah learned to identify the weak points in 12 different species. Other children learned to swim. Hannah learned how to move without making sound, how to see in the dark, how to feel danger before it arrived. Her mother had called it preparation. "The galaxy is not kind," she had said one night when Hannah was 12. "I will not send you into it without weapons." Hannah had thought she meant guns or knives, but her mother had tapped her head and then her heart. "Your mind is your first weapon, your body is your second, Everything else is just a tool, so. Hana knew xenobiology because she knew how to take things apart. She knew anatomy because she knew where to strike. She knew silence because noise could get you killed. But she could not tell Kevin any of this. I had a good teacher, she said. Instead, Kevin nodded and went back to struggling with his hologram. Hana watched him for a moment. This boy who had never known fear, who had grown up safe and protected, who thought the universe was a place of wonder and not a place of teeth. She felt something strange in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it. She wanted to protect him. She wanted to make sure nothing ever taught him the lessons she had learned. The class ended and students began to file out. Hana packed her things slowly. Kevin waited for her because he always waited for her. "Wanna get food?" he asked. "The cafeteria has those sweet pods from Veller." 3 today. Hana almost smiled. She did not smile often, but Kevin had a way of almost making her smile. "Sure," she said. They walked into the hallway together. The halls of the academy were made of something that looked like glass but was stronger than steel. Light came from everywhere and nowhere. The floor was smooth and their footsteps made soft sounds that echoed slightly other. Students moved around them. A group of young Morthok stomped past their armor plates. Clicking of Valari floated overhead, her wings humming. 2 Tazani walked together, all 8 of their hands gesturing as they talked. Hana watched them all. She watched without seeming to watch. This was another thing her mother had taught her. Always know who is around you. Always know where the exits are. Always know what you would do if something went wrong. She did not expect anything to go wrong. The academy was safe. The academy had security. The academy was neutral ground where violence was forbidden. But her mother had also taught her something else. Safe is a feeling, not a fact, and feelings can lies. Hana watched, and she walked beside Kevin, who talked about sweet pods and homework and a funny thing that happened in his morning class, and she felt something at the back of her neck, something like a cold finger tracing her spine. She knew that feeling. Her mother had told her about it. Your body knows danger before your mind. As she had said, trust the animal inside you. It has kept your ancestors alive for 1,000,000 years. Hana did not stop walking. She did not change her expression. She simply became more aware. The hallway suddenly seemed sharper. The sound seemed clearer. The air seemed too. Have a taste. Something was wrong. She did not know what yet, but she knew it was coming, and whatever it was, she would be ready. Far below the shining halls of the academy, there was a space station called Keth9. It hung in the shadow of a dead moon where no one looked and no one asked questions. The station was old and dark, and it smelled like metal and secrets. In the deepest part of Keth9, there was a room that did not exist on any map. If you asked the station computer about it, the computer would tell you there was only a wall there. But behind that wall, things happened. Things that the galaxy pretended did not exist. The broker sat in this room and waited. He was Tazani, with 4 arms that never stopped moving. His skin was the color of wet stone, and his eyes were the color of old blood. He had been in this business for 40 years, and he had never been caught because he was very careful and very smart. Today, he was meeting clients. 6 of them stood before him. 3 were Valtteri, and 3 were Koths. The Valtteri were serpent people with scales that could change color to match anything around them. They were assassins by nature and by choice. They could become invisible in plain sight, and they moved without sound. Their leader was called Senna, and she had killed more targets than she could remember. The Koth were insects that walked like men. They had hard shells and sharp limbs and mandibles that could cut through metal. They were mercenaries who fought for money and nothing else. Their leader had no name that translated to any other language, so everyone just called him First. The broker looked at them all and felt something he rarely felt. He felt doubt. "I have a job," he said. His 4 hands moved as he talked, one pulling up images on a holographic screen, one holding a drink, one tapping on a datapad, and one resting on a weapon hidden beneath the table. The target is Ambassador David Park of Earth. The Image showed a human male with gray hair and tired eyes. He wore the formal clothes of a diplomat, and he had the look of a man who spent too much time in meetings. "Why, Senna?" asked. Her voice was like silk sliding over glass. The broker shrugged with two of his arms. "The Purity Consortium wants him dead. They believe that humans should not be part of the galactic community. They believe that Deathworlders are too dangerous to allow into civilized space." First clicked his mandibles. "The Purity Consortium is made of fools. They fear everything different." Perhaps the broker agreed. But fools with money are still customers. They are paying 12 million credits for this job. The room became very quiet. 12 million credits was more money than most beings saw in a lifetime. "What is the security?" Senna asked. The broker pulled up more images. "Heavy personal guards around the ambassador at all times. Human marines empowered. Armor, automated defense systems. The humans take protection very seriously." "Then, how do we reach him?" First demanded. The broker smiled with his mandibles in the way that made other species uncomfortable. "The ambassador has a daughter. She attends the Unity Academy." A new image appeared, a human girl with dark hair and dark eyes. She wore a gray uniform, and she was not looking at the camera. She was looking at something in the distance with an expression that showed nothing at all. "Her name is Hana Park," the broker said. "She is 17 years old. She's the ambassador's only child. He will do anything to protect her." Senna studied the image. "A child, easy enough. We take her and use her to draw out the father. Then we kill them both." The broker held up one hand. "I must warn you. She is a Deathworlder." First made a sound that might have been laughter in his species. "Deathworlders are slow. Their heavy gravity makes them heavy and clumsy. We have killed Deathworlders before. 3 of them in the past 2 years. Those were laborers," the broker said carefully. "They were workers who had never trained for combat. This girl is different. Her mother was a human soldier, a special forces operative. The mother has been training the daughter since childhood." Senna waved one of her coils dismissively. "A trained child is still a child. How dangerous can she be? We are 6 professional killers. She's 1 girl." The broker wanted to argue. He had studied humans. He had read the reports from their homeworld. He knew things that most of the galaxy did not know. He knew that humans had invented war the way other species had invented art. He knew that human children played games that simulated combat. He knew that the Deathworlder instinct was not something that training created, but something that training unleashed. But he also knew that these 6 would not listen. They had their confidence and their reputation and their skills. They did not believe that anything could stand against them. "Very well," he said. "I have provided the warning. The contract terms are standard. Half payment now and half when the job is complete. You have 72 hours. The 6 assassins turned to leave. Senna paused at the door. "You worry too much, broker," she said. "We will collect the girl by this time tomorrow. Keep our payment ready." She vanished through the door. Her scale shifted and she became part of the shadows. The 3 Koth followed, clicking and buzzing to each other in their own language. The broker sat alone in his room. He looked at the image of Hana Park, still floating in the air before him. He looked at her eyes. He saw something there that the assassins had not seen. Saw patience. He saw stillness. He saw the look of a predator that did not need to hunt, because it knew that prey always came to it eventually. He began to write a new contract, a contingency, a backup plan, 6 replacement assassins just in case. Because the broker had not survived 40 years by being confident. He had survived by being afraid of the right things, and something about that human girl made him very afraid. Meanwhile, on the Academy station, Hana Park walked through the halls beside her friend, Kevin. She did not know that 6 killers were coming for her. She did not know that her life had been sold for 12 million credits. She did not know that in less than 1 day, her world would change forever. But her body knew something. Her instincts whispered warnings that her mind could not yet understand. The cold feeling At the back of her neck grew stronger. Something was coming, and deep inside her, in a place where her mother's training had built walls around a very old and very dangerous thing, the Deathworlder began to wake. The attack came during fourth period. Hannah was walking Kevin to his next class. This had become a habit without her realizing it. Every day between classes, she would walk beside him through the halls. She told herself it was because they were going the same direction. She told herself it was convenient. She did not admit that she felt something like fear when he was out of her sight. They were in hallway C7. The walls here were the same silver glass as everywhere else. The lights hummed softly overhead. A few other students moved past them, heading to their own classes. Everything was normal. Everything was peaceful. Then Hannah's skin began to prickle. It started at the back of her neck and spread down her spine. It was like electricity running through water. It was like standing in a field and knowing that lightning was about to strike. Her mother had taught her to never ignore this feeling. Your body knows danger before your mind does. She stopped walking. Kevin took 2 more steps before he noticed Hannah. What is wrong? She did not answer. She was listening, not with her ears, but with something older, something that humans had carried in their blood since they were small creatures hiding from larger creatures in the dark of ancient forests. The hallway was too quiet. The other students had gone. The doors on either side were all closed. The air had a strange taste, like metal and fierce. She grabbed Kevin by the arm and pulled him into a supply closet. The door shut behind them with a soft click. She put her hand over his mouth before he could speak. His eyes went wide with confusion and fear, but he did not struggle. He trusted her. He did not know why she was doing this, but he trusted her through the small window in the closet. Hannah watched the hallway. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the air itself seemed to shimmer, and 6 figures appeared from nothing. 3 of them were serpent creatures with scales that shifted from invisibility to a dark green. Their bodies coiled and twisted as they moved without making any sound. 3 others were insect creatures with shells like black armor and limbs that ended in points, sharp enough to cut steel. All 6 carried weapons, energy weapons that could burn through flesh and bone. The lead serpent creature spoke into a device on her wrist. Hallway C7 is clear. We are moving to extract the target from classroom 12. Classroom 12. That was where Hannah had been sitting 10 minutes ago. That was where 30 students were taking an exam right now. Valarian, Morthic, and Tisani and others. All of them children. All of them innocent. The 6 assassins began to move toward the classroom. Hannah felt her blood go cold first. Then it went hot. Very hot. She knew what she was seeing. She knew what these creatures planned to do. They would take hostages. They would threaten children. They would use innocent lives as tools. Something inside her shifted. The girl who read poetry and fed small animals in the garden dome stepped back, and something else stepped forward. Something her mother had trained and sharpened and honed for 17 years. Stay here, she whispered to Kevin. Her voice did not sound like her own. It was flat and cold like metal in winter. Do not move. Do not make a sound, Hannah. What are you doing? But she was already moving. The closet door opened without a sound. She stepped into the hallway behind the 6 assassins. They were focused on the classroom ahead. They did not look back because nothing on this station should have been a threat. Nothing here could hurt them. They were wrong. The first Koth died without knowing what happened. Hannah crossed the distance between them in a heartbeat. Her fist struck the soft spot at the base of its skull, where the shell did not cover. The force of the blow came from legs that had grown strong under Earth's heavy gravity. The insect creature's body was built for a lighter world. It could not survive a Deathworld strike. Chitin cracked. The creature dropped. The second Koth turned. Its mandibles clicked in alarm. Its forearms raised a weapon. Hannah was already inside its reach. She drove her elbow into the joint where its chest met its belly. The armor there was thin. It was designed to allow movement. It was not designed to stop a blow from someone who had been doing strength training since she was 8 years. The cloth folded around her elbow. A sound came from its mouth that might have been a scream. She silenced it with a strike to its throat. The third Koth fired its weapon. The beam of energy passed through the space where Hannah had been standing, but she was not there anymore. She had moved the moment the weapon started to rise. Her foot connected with the creature's primary arm at the shoulder. The arm separated from the body. The Koth screamed, and she ended the scream with her hands. 3 seconds, 3 bodies. The Velthri were faster than the Koth. They were assassins, not just mercenaries. They had trained for combat their entire lives. The moment their allies fell, they spread out. They used doorways for cover. They moved with deadly grace, but they were assassins from a world where evolution meant growing sharper fangs or better camouflage. They were killers from a place where death came through poison or ambush. They were not from Earth. They did not understand what it meant to come from a world where everything was trying to kill you, where you had to be stronger, faster, smarter, and more brutal than every other living thing. Hannah pulled a fire extinguisher from the wall. It was heavy, dense emergency equipment built to last. The lead Velthri began to shift. Her scales rippled, and she started to fade from sight. But Hannah did not need to see her. She could hear the assassin's heartbeat. She could smell the fear chemicals leaking from her scales. She could feel the tiny movements of air as the creature breathed. The fire extinguisher flew from her hands. It crossed the hallway like a meteor and struck the space where sound and smell and movement came together. The Velthri became visible again as she fell. Her skull had cracked like an egg dropped on stone. Fifth assassin came from behind. Hannah let her come. She felt the blade enter her shoulder. The pain was sharp and hot and real. But pain was just information. Her mother had taught her that pain tells you something is wrong. It does not tell you to stop. She trapped the arm that held the blade. She twisted. Her fingers found the joints where bones connected. She pulled in directions that bones were not meant to go. The sound of breaking was very loud in the quiet hallway. The last assassin, the leader, called. Senna did something none of the others had done. She ran, she turned, and fled toward the emergency exit. Her scales shifted, trying to make her invisible, but Hannah could track her by the sound of her coils sliding across the floor, by the disturbed air, by the terror that poured off her like heat. Hannah caught her before she reached the door. When it was over, she sat down against the wall. Her shoulder was bleeding. The blade was still in it. She knew she should not remove it yet. Removing it would make the bleeding worse. Her mother had taught her that too. The hallway did not look like a hallway anymore. 6 bodies lay in spreading pools of fluid in 6 different colors. The walls were marked with the evidence of violence. The air smelled like copper and fear. Hannah looked at her hands. They were red. They were shaking. She heard footsteps. Kevin appeared at the end of the hallway. His face was white. His eyes were huge. He looked at the bodies. He looked at the blood. Hannah. He whispered, "Station security arrived 4 minutes later. They came with weapons drawn. They came ready for a battle." They found the battle already over. A human girl sat against the wall, pressing her uniform jacket against a wound in her shoulder. Her eyes were distant. Her breathing was steady. 6 professional killers lay dead around her. One of the security officers, a Tasani named Lisa Moon, approached slowly. "What happened here?" Hannah looked up at her. The Deathworlder was gone now. The girl was back, but something in her eyes would never be quite the same. They were going to hurt the other students. She said quietly, "I could not let them." News of what happened in hallway C7 spread through the station like fire through dry grass. Within minutes, everyone knew. Within hours, the entire galaxy would know. Ambassador David Park arrived at the Academy 1 hour after the attack. His shuttle had broken several safety regulations to get there as fast as possible. He did not care about regulations. He did not care about protocols. He cared about one thing only. He found Hannah in the medical bay. She sat on a bed with white sheets while a medical robot finished sealing the wound in her shoulder. The blade had been removed. The hole had been cleaned and closed with something called biogel that would help her body heal faster. Security Director Lisa Moon was there. She was Tasani with gray skin and 4 arms that she kept folded across her chest right now. She was asking questions. She was recording answers. She was trying to understand what had happened in that hallway. Ambassador Park pushed through the door without asking permission. The guards who had tried to stop him were wise enough to step aside when they saw his face. Director Moon turned to face him. Ambassador Park, I was just interviewing your daughter about the incident. Park ignored her. He crossed the room to Hana's bed and knelt beside it. He looked at her face. He looked at the bandage on her shoulder. He looked into her eyes, searching for something. Are you all right? He asked. She nodded. Then she said, Kevin is okay. I made sure. Park felt something break inside his chest and rebuild itself in a different shape. He had known that his daughter was being trained. He had known what his wife was teaching her. He had argued about it many times, but he had never truly understood what it meant until this moment. Director Moon continued speaking because that was her job. The footage shows your daughter killing 6 trained assassins in under 30 seconds. She used her hands and a fire extinguisher. The attackers were armed with military-grade weapons. They had professional training. They had numerical advantage. None of that mattered. Park stood slowly. He turned to face the director. What were they doing here? We believe they were contracted to kidnap your daughter and use her as leverage against you. The organization behind the contract is called the Purity Consortium. They oppose human integration into galactic society. Purity Consortium. Park had heard of them, extremists who believed that Deathworlders were too dangerous to allow among civilized species. They wrote manifestos about the threat humans posed. They held rallies where speakers shouted about keeping the galaxy pure, and now they had sent assassins after his child. Where did they come from? Park asked. We are investigating a station called Keth. 9 seems to be involved. A criminal called the Broker arranged the contract. Find them. Park said. His voice was calm. His face was calm. But something in his eyes made Director Moon take a small step backward. Find everyone involved. Ambassador, the director said carefully. This is a matter for galactic law enforcement. The Academy will cooperate fully. But my daughter was attacked. Park said. She is 17 years old. She was walking to class. She had to kill 6 people to survive. He paused. Do you understand what that means? The director was quiet. She will remember this day for the rest of her life. Park continued. She will see those bodies when she closes her eyes. She will feel that blade in her shoulder. She will remember what it was like to take lives even though she had no choice. So yes, director, please find everyone involved. Please make sure this never happens again. Because if you do not, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. The director nodded slowly. I understand. Ambassador Park turned back to his daughter. Her eyes were closed now. The medical robot had given her something for pain, and she was drifting towards sleep. He sat down beside her bed and took her hand. Behind him, the director began issuing orders to her staff. Meanwhile, the Galactic Unity Council convened an emergency session in the great chamber at the heart of the station. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their assigned positions. Some floated, some stood, some sat on specialized equipment designed for their bodies. They all talked at once. Order, shouted the speaker, who was a Morthic elder with plates scarred from a long life. Order, please. We must discuss this incident calmly. The Valari delegate rose first. Her wings trembled with emotion. This proves what we have always feared. Deathworlders are too dangerous. A child murdered 6 beings. A child. Are we supposed to believe this is acceptable? Murdered. Ambassador Park had entered the chamber. He stood at the podium reserved for witnesses, and his voice carried to every corner. 6 armed assassins entered this station with the intent to kidnap or kill children. My daughter defended herself and her classmates. Is that not permitted? The violence, the Valari delegate insisted. The level of brutality, the methods she used were proportional to the threat, Park replied. They came with weapons designed to kill. She used her hands and whatever she could find. She was one 17-year-old girl against 6 professional killers. Would you prefer she had died quietly? Would that have been civilized enough for you? The chamber erupted in noise. Some species shouted. Some clicked or buzzed or hummed in their own languages of anger. Sides began to form. Some stood with the humans. Some stood against a Sazani representative, raised all 4 hands for silence. My colleagues, please let us consider the facts. A criminal organization sent assassins to this station. They threatened our children, not just human children, all of our children. If they had reached classroom 12, what would have happened? Who would have protected the students there? The Valari delegate faltered. A Morthic warrior stood. His armor plates were painted with symbols of honor earned in battle. I have reviewed the security footage. What that human child did was not murder. It was combat. It was protection. She saw enemies moving toward innocents, and she stopped them. This is what warriors do. He looked around the chamber. If any Morthic child had done the same, we would celebrate them as heroes. Why do we condemn her? Because she is human, someone shouted from the upper galleries. Because she is a Deathworlder. Because her people are dangerous. Her people were attacked, Ambassador Park said quietly. Her people did not start this. Her people finished it. He looked around the chamber at all the different species, at all the different faces. Some looked at him with fear, some with respect, some with things he could not name. My daughter is in the medical bay right now, he said. She is sleeping because she had to be sedated because despite what you think, she is not a monster. She is a girl who had to do something terrible to protect her friend and her classmates. She will carry the weight of what happened today for the rest of her life. He paused. So before you condemn her, ask yourselves this question. What would you want your child to do in that same situation? Would you want them to fight? Would you want them to survive? Or would you want them to die because fighting back was too uncivilized? The chamber was silent. I thought so, Park said. And he turned and walked out, leaving them to their debates and their fears and their slowly dawning understanding. The universe was not safe. The universe had never been safe, and maybe, just maybe, having Deathworlders as allies was not such a terrible thing. In her bed in the medical bay, Hannah Park slept and dreamed of fire. 3 days after the attack at the academy, a cleaning crew found the broker dead in his secret room on Cath 9. There were no signs of forced entry. The door had not been opened from outside. The walls had not been breached. The security systems showed nothing unusual. No one had come. No one had gone. But the broker was dead. His forearms were spread across his desk, as if he had been reaching for something. His eyes were open and empty. His 4 hearts had simply stopped beating all at the same moment. The doctors who examined his body could not explain it. The investigators who searched his room could not find answers. His death was ruled natural causes, even though everyone knew that was a lie. Over the following weeks, other deaths happened across the galaxy. A Tasani shipping magnate who had funded the Purity Consortium was found floating in his private pool. He had drowned in 3 inches of water. A Valari politician who had spoken publicly about human threats suffered a sudden failure of her flight glands. She fell from the sky in front of 1,000 witnesses. 3 Koth warriors who had provided weapons to the assassins were discovered dead in their barracks. Their shells had cracked from the inside, as if something had burst out of them. The autopsies found nothing. The leader of the Purity Consortium, a Morthic called Threaten the Pure, was giving a speech to his followers when he suddenly stopped speaking. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. He fell and did not rise. The doctor said his brain had simply turned off like a light switch being flipped. No one could prove anything. No one could find evidence. No one could explain how these deaths kept happening to people connected to the attack on the academy, but everyone understood the message: humanity had not survived a death world by being gentle. They had not clawed their way to the top of their food chain by being forgiving. They had not spread across their planet and then beyond by being merciful. When something hurt their children, they hunted it down, and they were very, very thorough. The investigation stopped. The questions stopped. The deaths stopped because there was no one left to kill, and the galaxy learned something new about humans. They protected their own, and they never forgot. At the Unity Academy, life slowly returned to normal. Classes resumed. Students walked the halls again. The blood had been cleaned from hallway C7, and the walls had been repaired. You could not tell that anything had happened there, but things had changed. Hannah Park was no longer the quiet transfer student who sat in the back of classrooms. She was something else now. She was the girl who had turned a hallway into a graveyard. She was the Deathworlder who had shown the galaxy what that word truly meant. Some students avoided her now. They crossed to the other side of halls when they saw her coming. They whispered when she passed and fell silent when she got too close, but others sought her out. A young Morthek warrior approached her one day and simply bowed his head in respect without saying a word. A Tizani girl asked if they could study together because she felt safe with Hannah nearby. Velari, whose brother had been in classroom 12, brought her a gift from his homeworld and thanked her with tears in his compound eyes. Kevin found her in the garden dome 1 week after the attack. She was sitting by a small pond feeding the tiny creatures that lived there. They had no official name. The groundskeepers considered them pests. But Hannah came here every day to give them food. Everyone is talking about you, Kevin said as he sat down beside Harry. No, he was quiet for a moment. Then, are you okay with all of it? Hannah watched the little creatures eat. They were simple things with simple needs. They did not know about politics or fear or violence. They just wanted food and safety, and to be left alone. My mother used to say that being strong means you have choices, she said finally. Weak people have no choices. Things just happen to them. They cannot stop them. They cannot change them. They can only survive. But when you are strong, you get to decide. She scattered more food across the water. I decided that those people were not going to hurt anyone. And you are okay with that decision? Hannah looked at Kevin. She looked at this bright, gentle boy who had never known a world where survival was the only goal, where children learned to fight because children who could not fight did not grow old. He had grown up believing the universe was wonderful and safe and full of possibilities. She had taken lives so that he could keep believing that I am okay. She said, because you are okay, because the others are okay. She almost smiled. That is enough. Kevin nodded slowly. He did not fully understand, but he accepted it. He reached out and took her hand, and they sat together, watching the artificial sunset paint the dome in colors that no Deathworld had ever seen. In the observation deck above the garden, Ambassador David Park watched his daughter through the glass. His wife stood beside him. She had arrived from Earth 2 days ago, dropping everything to be with their family again. She still wore her travel clothes. She had not slept. She did well, Sarah Park said. Quietly, she killed 6 people, David replied. She survived 6 people trying to kill her, Sarah corrected, and she protected others while doing it. She looked at her husband in the reflection of the glass. Her eyes were hard and soft at the same time. That is the best we can hope for, is it not? That our children are strong enough to protect what matters. David did not answer. He just watched his daughter laugh at something Kevin said and wondered about the future. Humans were new to the galaxy. They were strange and frightening to other species. They came from a world of nightmares, and they carried that world inside them wherever they went, but they also carried something else. They carried the fierce protective instinct that had let them survive when everything else wanted them dead. They carried the willingness to fight for the people they loved. They carried the stubborn refusal to let evil when the galaxy was vast and old and full of dangers. Some of those dangers have learned a lesson in the past few weeks. They had learned that humans were not to be threatened. They had learned that human children were not to be harmed. They had learned that the death world called Earth had produce something the universe had never seen before, a species that would burn down the stars themselves to protect their young. In the Garden Dome, Hannah Park fed the small creatures and held her friend's hand and let herself be a girl for a little while longer, but inside her the Deathworlder waited, patient and watchful and ready just in case.